1997, and it was Bernard and I were both part of the cohort of new principals that were coming into the school system. So if you can imagine, Bernard and I, J.C. Brizard, maybe you've heard of J.C. He had been out superintendent in Chicago for a while. Santi Taveras, Big Santi. We were all in the same class. And one of the things that we recognized was that there really was no organization that brought us together. And so over the years, we've always sought to just do an informal gathering and a networking opportunity, just so we all get to know each other and to figure out how we can help each other. So this is not an organization, it's just, as it's always been, an email from Bernard and David to say we're getting together. We do this once a year, and always look forward to it, and it's always so glad that you all take the time to come out, and it's really about sharing. So as you talk about April, and you watched her come from a teacher to now being a phenomenal principal, and I'm inspired, by Misha, and everybody who knew me when I was a principal at Law, Government, and Justice knew that all the good work that we were doing, all the ideas came from Misha. Misha, stand up so everybody knows.
I just want
Misha's
everybody to say
Absolutely. And so, that's right. I just took all the credit.
Yes. I didn't write the book though.
There you go. That's right. But but that's what this is, right? So it's about good energy, and we're really happy that everybody's here. This is a particularly interesting place for us to be. So by a quick show of hands, how many of you have never stepped foot in here before? Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about. And that's one of the reasons why we chose this place to be here. You're going to hear more about it, and when we're done and we start our kind of networking and moving around, we want you to move around and see this museum. It is a very, very powerful place, and it has programs that are designed for our kids, and I want you to hear more about that. You'll be hearing about that in just a moment. I wanted to first of all bring up a gentleman who I've gotten to know over the last year or so. He is on the board of directors for the Simon Wiesenthal Museum, and he's become a very good friend of me and my family. And so I'd like for him to speak on behalf of the board and to welcome all of you here today. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Jonah Retzes. Jonah, come on up and say a few words. I just introduced you. No? Jonah, you going to stand so they know that you're here?
The rabbis can always...
All right. Very good. So Rabbi Burg, so you've been duly appointed to come on up and speak on behalf. So everybody, please welcome Rabbi Stephen Burg, Executive Director of the museum. Thank you. All right.
Okay. First of all, I have to thank Jonah, because Jonah actually put the two of us in touch with each other. So he's really the reason that we're all here tonight. And thank you so much for being here. I know that since David and I met, I've become a huge Eagle Academy fan. I talk about it everywhere I go. I've been to the Bronx. I'm in the midst of getting other people to go visit the Bronx location, and I think their work is incredible. So it's really an honor for us to have you here, and all of you to kind of grow the family, and we look forward to really seeing all of your schools and appreciating the incredible work that's being done from the folks in this room. I just want to tell you a drop about the place that you're standing in. We are the Simon Wiesenthal Center. That's the name of our organization, and we were named after an individual named Simon Wiesenthal. Simon Wiesenthal was a Holocaust survivor. He spent 5 years. He was taken from his home in Vienna, Austria, and sent for 5 years to different concentration camps. By a great miracle, he survived and his wife survived. They were reunited 5 years later. And they told him, look, you're an architect. Why don't you go back to Vienna and you'll hang up your shingle and you'll start your life over again. He said, well, I didn't take a sabbatical for 5 years. I got to do something. I need to make a difference in the world. And he started roaming around trying to figure out what he can do, and he bumped into a bunch of American prosecutors that at the time were prosecuting the famous Nuremberg trials. And he said, I'd like to help you in what you're doing. He said, well, how can you help us? And he came back the next day, and he had a file, a dossier of 85 Nazis that he had encountered in different camps. And since he was an architect, he drew pictures of all the 85 people and handed it over to the American prosecutors. They said, okay, come on board, you can help us out. And what happened immediately following that trial and following World War II was we, the Americans, we came back home because we had been in Europe for so long. The Russians had kind of dropped down the Iron Curtain, and the Europeans were just trying to rebuild their homes and put food on the table. And the people that had killed millions and millions of Jews and gypsies and LGBT folks and so many different people, they fled throughout the world. And Simon Wiesenthal opened the only office in the entire world in Vienna that would search out for these Nazis perpetrators and find them and bring them to justice. And he always said it was never about revenge, it was about justice. And fast forward, he spent all those years, culminating when he caught Adolf Eichmann, who was the architect of the genocide. In the late 70s, in Los Angeles, Rabbi Marvin Heyer, who's the dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, decided he wanted to open up a Holocaust museum in Los Angeles. And this was before Washington and all the many Holocaust museums we have today. And he flew to Vienna, and he went to Simon and said, Simon, we'd like to name our museum after you. And Simon Wiesenthal said, I think it's a great idea to have a museum, but that's not who I am and that's not what I do. I'm an activist, I go out, I change the world, I get things done. If you want to do that, then we can talk. So the first project we worked on with Simon Wiesenthal in the late 70s, the statute of limitations on murder was about to run out in Germany, which meant you could have run an extermination camp, killed hundreds of thousands of people, but now you can move back to Germany, live under your own name, and brag about what you've done in the local pub. So what we did was we sent 1 million postcards with very graphic images on them to the German parliament to change the law. And the law indeed was changed, that for genocide there is no statute of limitations. And that was the first project that we started on, and we became a human rights advocacy group around the world. The second thing that we do is we make movies. I always throw that in because we won 2 Oscars, and that's a cool thing for any nonprofit. Thank you. And the third thing that we do is we did build that museum that we approached Simon about, but it wasn't going to be a museum of artifacts. It wasn't just going to be a museum where people would just go around and see things. It was going to be an experiential museum. It was going to be a place that could be an educational center where people can learn. And that became the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles and the one here in New York. And we chose Museum of Tolerance because although the Holocaust happened to the Jewish people and it was so terrible and so many millions of people were killed, we recognized that why did it happen? It happened because hate speech went unchecked, because no one spoke up to bullies, and because terrible things happened. We realized that that is a universal issue. And if we're going to build a Museum of Tolerance, it can't just be about our story. It has to be about everyone's story. And as you walk around our museum here, and we focus mostly on children from day school through high school, from really grade 4 through 12 that come through here. We also do law enforcement training in this room as well. But as you walk through here, you get this sense, we have a film there that we show in our time. I call it the George Clooney movie because he comes in at the end, right? Kids like that. But the film In Our Time, it starts out by just talking about genocide throughout the last century, where it happened. Not only the Holocaust, but it happened to the Armenians. It happened in Rwanda, 800,000 people in 3 months, right? And then we end up with today, and we talk about North Korea and Darfur. And when I tell the groups of kids that come through here, I say, I'm willing to guarantee you right now that in the next 15, 20 years, genocide will happen in this world. I just don't know where yet. And we need to train the next generation to speak up and speak out to prevent that from happening. So it's our distinct honor and pleasure to host all of you here tonight who are really inspiring the future children of New York and of this country. And afterwards, we'll have some docents around, or I'm happy to give anyone my card, have you come back here for a VIP tour with you or whoever else, your families or some of your staff, to take you around here to show you the great work that we do. Thank you so much.